I think the one I enjoyed reading more than anything else. My husband, he does it really. He can do all the voices.
A world-famous friendship turned into one of history's most shocking rivalries. Behind palace gates, hidden affairs, whispered betrayals, and secret confrontations tore apart what once seemed innocent. Diana, the beloved people's princess, and Camilla Parker Bowles, poised, calculated, and entangled with Prince Charles, became locked in a feud that captivated the globe. From secret gifts to confrontations that stunned onlookers, their story is a collision of jealousy, power, and heartbreak. Now, we reveal why Camilla utterly hated Princess Diana and the explosive moments the world never forgot. Friendship shadowed by secrets. Before the world ever viewed them as adversaries, Diana and Camilla shared moments that looked like friendship. But even in those early days, a quiet tension simmered beneath the surface. In the early 1980s, Diana, barely 19, was still a young woman stepping into the dizzying world of British high society. She would often visit Camilla and Andrew Parker Bowles at their country home, the picturesque Bolhide Manor, nestled among rolling hills and sprawling gardens. On the outside, their encounters seemed gentle and ordinary, shared laughter over tea, whispered confidences, and the kind of casual ease one might expect between two women who, by all appearances, could be friends. But appearances were deceiving. Beneath the polite smiles and social niceties, an invisible tension lingered in the air. Charles, the man Diana was soon to marry, had a history with Camilla, a history that refused to fade quietly. His lingering attachment to her was subtle, yet unmistakable, weaving a complicated web that neither Diana nor Camilla could fully ignore. Every glance, every passing remark, every polite exchange seemed charged with a hidden significance. Diana, so young and eager to embrace her future as a princess, could sense it, though she might not have been able to name it yet. Camilla, too, carried the weight of this history, aware that the man she had once loved would soon be bound to someone else. Their interactions were a delicate dance, a careful balance between friendliness and wariness. Conversations that might have been simple with any other woman were instead shadowed by suspicion. Diana, bright-eyed and trusting, was navigating not just the excitement of a new romance, but the complicated reality of a rival who wasn't openly hostile. Camilla, poised and confident, had to negotiate her own feelings while maintaining a composed exterior, for the eyes of society were always watching. It was a relationship built on subtleties, smiles that didn't quite reach the eyes, jokes that carried an undercurrent of tension, and silences that spoke louder than words. Long before the world witnessed their famous clashes, Diana and Camilla's story began as a quiet, simmering tension. What many later saw as a fierce, public feud was, in reality, a slow, invisible struggle rooted in subtle unease and unspoken rivalry. Even before Diana captured hearts as the beloved people's princess, and Camilla endured relentless scrutiny, their complex relationship had already taken shape. A tangled mix of jealousy, caution, and the unyielding shadow of a shared love interest quietly shaped their interactions, planting seeds of a rivalry that would bring both fascination and heartbreak for decades to come. In retrospect, these early visits to Bolhide Manor were more than casual social calls. They were the beginning of a story shaped by longing, secrecy, and the silent, unacknowledged competition that would haunt both women for years to come. The friendship that might have been was already shadowed by the past, a past that refused to stay buried. It was here, in these quiet moments filled with laughter, tension, and subtle glances, that the rivalry, which would define their lives first quietly, but unmistakably, took root. Camilla and Diana began as friends, often visiting each other and sharing conversations about life. But how did a friendship so seemingly close turn into a bitter rivalry? Could this enmity have been avoided? Now let's unravel the hidden tensions and uncover the roots of their enduring animosity. The bracelet that whispered, betrayal. What started as a vague feeling of unease quickly escalated into unmistakable alarm for Diana. During the whirlwind of her engagement to Prince Charles, she stumbled upon something that shook her to the core. Charles had given Camilla a delicate bracelet, a seemingly innocent piece of jewelry. But this was no ordinary gift. It was engraved with the initials G and F, while outsiders might have dismissed it as a charming gesture between friends. Those letters carried an intimacy only the two of them truly understood. To Diana, they were unmistakable proof that Camilla and Charles shared a private world that she was completely shut out of. At first glance, a bracelet might appear trivial, even beautiful, yet in the delicate web of royal relationships, it became a weapon of emotional revelation. For Diana, every curve of the metal, every letter etched into its surface, screamed a silent truth. Camilla was still entwined with Charles in ways that went far beyond mere friendship. The very object, small enough to rest lightly on a wrist, was heavy with unspoken meanings, memories, and promises that Diana could not access. It was as if Charles had handed Camilla a secret token, a reminder of a bond that had never truly been broken, and Diana had no choice but to witness it. The discovery hit her like a thunderclap. Until that moment, Diana had approached her engagement with a mixture of excitement and trust. She had believed that her relationship with Charles marked a clear chapter, that she could step into the life of a princess, knowing the past was behind them. But the bracelet shattered that illusion. Suddenly, the woman she had once called a friend, someone she confided in, laughed with, and leaned on, was no longer simply a companion. Camilla became a rival, not in the casual sense, but in a deeply personal, emotionally charged battlefield. Every secret smile, every private joke between Charles and Camilla now carried the sting of betrayal. The symbolism of the gift went far beyond its physical beauty. It became a mirror reflecting the cracks that had quietly appeared in trust, cracks that had grown while Diana, so young and hopeful, still believed in love's simple truths. That tiny engraved bracelet transformed into a permanent emblem of the fracture between the two women, marking the moment when innocence collided with reality. Diana's heartbreak was layered, not just from the thought of Charles's divided affections, but from the unsettling realization that someone she had opened her heart to could simultaneously occupy the most intimate part of her fiancé's life. From that point forward, every glance at the bracelet, every recollection of its engravings, carried a reminder of what had been lost. The elegance of the piece could not disguise the pain it represented. What might have seemed an insignificant trinket to anyone else held the power to redefine relationships, revealing alliances, secrets, and loyalties in ways that words alone could not convey. For Diana, it was not just jewelry. It was a quiet, unyielding witness to the beginning of a profound emotional struggle, a struggle that would shape her life and the lives of everyone involved. Diana suspected that a bracelet symbolized a secret connection between Camilla and her soon-to-be husband, Charles, igniting tension in their relationship. But was she right? Or was she overreacting to something that didn't exist? Could Camilla truly capture Charles's heart? Let's find out. Camilla's unseen grip. As Diana moved closer to the altar, what should have been a time of excitement and hope became increasingly shadowed by doubt. Every question she cautiously posed to Charles about Camilla was met with silence, a quiet refusal to confront the truth. Those pauses were deafening, echoing in Diana's mind long after the words, or the lack of them, left the room. The silence wasn't just an absence. It was a statement, a subtle confirmation that something lingered between Charles and the woman who seemed always to hover on the edges of their lives. Phone calls that rang in the middle of the night, meetings whispered about but never openly acknowledged, and fleeting encounters hinted at a connection that refused to fade. These were not abstract betrayals hidden in the shadows. They were alive, tangible, and relentless. Diana felt them every day, like an invisible current tugging at the foundations of her engagement. It was as if Camilla had woven herself into the very fabric of her impending marriage, a ghostly presence she could neither touch nor banish. This constant, quiet intrusion began to shape Diana's perception. Camilla was no longer just a friend of Charles, no longer just a figure from the past. In Diana's mind, she became something more insidious, a living, breathing reminder of everything uncertain and fragile in her own future. Every smile from Charles that lingered too long in the memory of another, every excuse for secrecy, every unexplained absence added layers to a mental picture Diana could not ignore. Camilla was a force, one that refused to step aside, a presence so persistent that even the happiest moments Diana imagined in her future with Charles were tinged with unease. Diana began to feel trapped between love and suspicion. Her heart urged her to believe in Charles, to trust the vows they would soon exchange, but her eyes, sharpened by instinct and fear, saw a different reality. Each clandestine detail she uncovered, no matter how small, strengthened the portrait of a woman determined to hold on to Charles, even at the cost of Diana's happiness. She realized that this wasn't a one-time betrayal or a fleeting lapse in judgment. It was ongoing, deeply personal, and impossible to ignore. The emotional weight pressed on Diana in private moments, when she was alone with her thoughts, when she imagined life behind palace walls, when the excitement of engagement should have been enough to thrill her. Instead, she felt a quiet tension, a low hum of anxiety that never left. Camilla had become more than a person. She was a symbol of uncertainty, a reminder of a past that refused to remain buried, and a warning of a future that could crumble in unexpected ways. In this way, Diana's understanding of her own marriage began to shift. It was no longer only about love, companionship, or duty. It had become a battlefield of emotions, where hope collided with fear and loyalty was measured against betrayal. Camilla's unseen hand shaped every thought, every doubt, every hope Diana dared to hold. And as the wedding day drew closer, the reality settled in. The struggle for Charles's heart was not a distant memory, nor a story of someone else's life. It was Diana's life, her marriage, and the fragile dream of a future she had once believed would be entirely her own. Charles maintained his relationship with Camilla through constant calls and secret meetings, even as he prepared to marry Diana. But would Diana ever confront them both? Would Camilla deny it, or admit what Diana had long suspected? Now let's delve into Diana's unforgettable showdown with Charles and Camilla. The basement confrontation. It was a night that seemed ordinary at first, but would soon become one of those rare moments that linger in memory like a scene from a gripping film. The occasion was a party hosted by Camilla's sister, a gathering meant to be social, light, and convivial. Yet beneath the polite chatter and clinking glasses, the air was thick with tension, a quiet storm waiting to erupt. Diana, only in her early 20s but already sharp and perceptive, arrived unannounced, choosing to come alone. There was no entourage, no fanfare, just her, stepping into a room that seemed to shrink around her presence. The atmosphere was uneasy, almost electric. Even those accustomed to royal protocol could feel the subtle undercurrent of discomfort, as if everyone instinctively knew that something significant was about to unfold. Ken Worf, Diana's former protection officer, remembered the scene with cinematic clarity, recalling how time seemed to slow, and every glance, every gesture became magnified. It was as if the world held its breath, waiting for the inevitable collision of emotion and truth. Diana's eyes scanned the room with quiet determination until they landed on the two people at the heart of the storm. Charles and Camilla seated together in the dim privacy of the basement. Without hesitation, Diana moved toward them. There was no preamble, no polite small talk, only a confrontation charged with honesty and courage. She faced them directly, her voice steady, her words cutting through the awkward silence. "Please don't treat me like an idiot. I know what's going on." The declaration was simple but devastating in its clarity. It was not an accusation born of rumor or innuendo. It was a moment of undeniable truth, spoken with the kind of confidence that could neither be ignored nor denied. Camilla, reportedly calm and somewhat detached, responded in a way that many would later see as cold, even dismissive. "Well, you have two wonderful boys." Her words, intended perhaps to soothe or deflect, did anything but. They ignited a spark, turning quiet tension into a blazing confrontation. Diana's fury, restrained yet palpable, contrasted sharply with Camilla's measured indifference. In that instant, a private tension became public, personal feelings clashing with social expectation, a royal drama unfolding in real time before witnesses who would never forget the intensity of the moment. This was far more than a simple disagreement. It was a crystallization of rivalry, a defining encounter that foreshadowed decades of emotional complexity, subtle battles, and public fascination. From that night forward, the dynamic between Diana and Camilla was never the same. A single moment of courage, a single confrontation, transformed what might have been private heartbreak into a story of intrigue and tension that would capture the world's attention for years to come. In that basement, under the soft light and behind the polite smiles of the evening, a rivalry was born. Not whispered in secret, but declared openly, boldly, and irrevocably. It was a moment that would echo through history, shaping perceptions, stirring emotions, and marking the beginning of a saga that would forever intertwine three lives in the public eye. Camilla and Charles were confronted by Diana, yet their reactions showed no remorse. But what could Diana do in response? Could she take legal action, or perhaps give Camilla a name she would never forget? Now, let's explore Diana's sharp and unyielding view of Camilla. The birth of the Rottweiler. As the years passed, Diana's feelings toward Camilla shifted from uneasy tolerance to a deep, simmering distrust. What had once been mere rivalry or quiet tension transformed into a complex mix of fear, frustration, and fascination. In the privacy of her own thoughts, Diana began referring to Camilla by a striking nickname, the Rottweiler. It wasn't a casual joke or passing insult. The name carried weight. It captured in a single image Camilla's relentless determination and her refusal to retreat once she had set her sights on a goal. To Diana, it was a precise, almost brutal description of the woman who now loomed so large in her life. The Rottweiler was more than a label. It was a symbol of emotional reality. Diana saw in Camilla not just a rival, but a constant, unyielding presence in Charles's world. No matter the distance, no matter the effort Diana made to carve out her own space, Camilla seemed to be everywhere, a shadowy echo in every corner of Charles's attention. She was persistent, patient, and, to Diana, frightening in her unwillingness to relinquish her hold. This was a woman who wouldn't back down, who wouldn't be ignored, and who in Diana's eyes had no regard for the damage left in her path. It was this relentlessness that made the nickname so vivid and so memorable. Rottweilers are known for loyalty and focus, yes, but also for their tenacity and bite. Diana sensed all of that in Camilla, a woman who could charm, who could manipulate, but who could also hold on with a frightening intensity, waiting for the perfect moment to assert herself. Each time Diana thought of her, the image came rushing back. Camilla as a force, patient and calculating, always nearby, always ready to strike in subtle, nearly invisible ways. The metaphor was precise. It spoke not just of anger, but of fear. The kind of fear born from watching someone you cannot remove from your life. Someone who is both admired and despised, resented and yet oddly compelling. Within the hushed hallways of the palace, where staff exchanged secretive whispers and gossip flowed like quiet currents, a nickname quietly took on a life of its own. The Rottweiler became more than just a label. It told a story, one of Diana's hidden struggles with jealousy, doubt, and heartbreak. It reflected the intense emotional weight she carried, the constant feeling that her marriage was under relentless scrutiny, and the way one person's stubborn, unyielding nature could ripple through her life, leaving lasting scars. In every whispered mention, the nickname echoed the private battles behind the royal facade. Half fear, half fascination, the term endured in royal lore. It captured the drama, the tension, and the inescapable presence that defined Diana's view of Camilla. And while the world might see only glimpses of their rivalry, the nickname reveals the raw, personal truth beneath the public smiles and poised appearances, the story of a woman who, in Diana's eyes, could not be ignored, softened, or defeated. The Rottweiler was always there, and for Diana, that reality was as unsettling as it was unforgettable. Diana chose to liken Camilla to a dog Rottweiler, to emphasize that she had no intention of stepping aside for her. But would the public side with Diana, or would they sympathize with Camilla instead? Let's uncover the full story. The Royal Divide. By the mid-1990s, the world had drawn its lines, and the battlefield was not just private, it was global. Diana, the beloved people's princess, was at the center of an outpouring of admiration and heartfelt sympathy. Every public appearance, every charity visit, every candid smile seemed to reaffirm her place in the hearts of millions. She was more than a princess. She had become an icon of grace, compassion, and resilience. People felt they knew her, connected with her, and in their eyes she represented all that was right and good in the royal story. Camilla, by contrast, was cast in the darkest shadows of this narrative. Public opinion had been swift and merciless. She was the woman blamed for the fracture of a marriage that the world had once idealized, and she carried the weight of that accusation openly. Magazines, television programs, and tabloids seemed almost to delight in painting her as a villain.
Queen Camilla's campaign to end domestic violence is the focus of a new documentary to be shown on ITV1 next Monday.
A schemer, a threat to the sanctity of a fairy tale union. Every glance, every whisper, every reported moment with Charles was scrutinized and magnified. In the eyes of the public, Camilla had become a symbol of betrayal, a figure to fear and despise. Even she seemed to recognize the relentless gaze. In a rare glimpse of vulnerability, she once confided to a neighbor, her words tinged with resignation. "They've got to blame someone. That someone is going to be me, I'm afraid." There was no denial, no desperate justification, just the quiet acknowledgement of the role she had been forced to play on the world stage. That single admission revealed the loneliness of her position, trapped between the love of a man and the judgment of millions. The intensity of this public scrutiny created a pressure cooker environment where emotions boiled over and resentment was inevitable. Diana thrived in the glow of affection. She was celebrated, defended, and adored, her every triumph amplified by an eager audience that felt it was on her side. Camilla, meanwhile, bore a vastly different experience. Suspicion followed her, contempt clung to her, and every gesture seemed to provoke more criticism than praise. In that stark contrast, personal animosity was not just possible, it was unavoidable. What started as a private, entangled, emotional affair quickly spiraled into a high-stakes drama watched by the entire world. Suddenly, a story that once belonged to hearts and secrets was rewritten by public opinion, demanding clear heroes and villains. Diana came to symbolize innocence and compassion, while Camilla was cast as the one at fault. Between them, suspicion and tension grew into a widening chasm. Every glance, every remark, every whispered rumor echoing through palace halls only fueled the growing distance, turning personal pain into a spectacle for all to see. By the mid-1990s, their lives were no longer just their own. The admiration lavished on Diana and the condemnation heaped on Camilla created a powerful, combustible mix, a mixture of public opinion and private pain that fanned the flames of rivalry. What might have remained a subtle personal conflict became a defining chapter in modern royal history, one where the judgment of the world carved out the roles each woman would play, forever etching the contours of a rivalry that seemed destined to endure. Diana was celebrated as the people's princess, admired for her empathy and grace, while Camilla openly admitted she would be blamed for the collapse of Charles and Diana's marriage. But do these reasons fully explain why Camilla hated Princess Diana, or was there more beneath the surface? Now let's unravel the hidden rivalry of hearts. Diana versus Camilla. The bond between Diana and Camilla was anything but straightforward. It wasn't just a rivalry, it was a complex web of emotions, personalities, and destiny intertwined. Their story carried echoes of friendship tinged with envy, hidden desires, and unspoken resentments, all magnified by the strict rules and expectations of royal life. Beneath the glittering, flawless surface of the British monarchy, a private storm was quietly raging, full of tension, longing, and secret struggles. Every glance, Every gesture hinted at the deeper currents between them. This wasn't just a personal clash, it was a drama that the world would watch unfold, one that captivated hearts and imaginations, leaving a mark that would be remembered for generations to come. In the beginning, Diana and Camilla shared moments of genuine connection. They were not born enemies. As young women navigating the intricacies of high society and royal circles, they found common ground. Yet, even early on, tension quietly simmered beneath the surface. The laughter shared in private drew a veil over undercurrents of suspicion, comparison, and quiet rivalry. What started as friendship gradually became shadowed by secrecy, unspoken truths, hidden desires, and the knowledge that their lives were about to become forever intertwined with destiny's heavy hand. By the time Diana became engaged to Prince Charles, the emotional dynamics had already shifted. Camilla, long involved with Charles in ways that would later spark scandal and heartbreak, found herself in a precarious position. Meanwhile, Diana, bright, young, and idealistic, entered the royal spotlight with the world watching. Her innocence, charm, and natural warmth captured hearts instantly, earning her adoration and the unquestioned love of a nation. But this love came with a cost. Behind the palace walls, private humiliations and subtle confrontations painted a very different story. A story of rivalry, tension, and quiet, cutting resentments that the world could only glimpse in fragments. What made the situation even more combustible was the stark contrast between their experiences. Diana was admired, celebrated, and embraced by the public. She represented the fairy tale bride, the embodiment of hope and beauty. Camilla, by contrast, had Charles's companionship, yet it came entwined with the burden of blame, whispered judgment, and social exclusion. She existed in a shadow, simultaneously connected to the crown, yet judged for the very bond that gave her access. Every public smile and private whisper added layers to a rivalry fueled not merely by desire, but by circumstance, timing, and emotion. In the relentless glare of public scrutiny, tension was almost inevitable. Camilla's emotions were complex and intensely human, shifting with each passing moment. Admiration for Diana mingled with envy, longing, and quiet frustration, creating an emotional storm that was impossible to ignore. Their connection, tangled in history, circumstance, and unspoken desires, grew increasingly strained. What began as casual acquaintance slowly morphed into a rivalry that seemed unavoidable, a collision of hearts and egos, shaped as much by fate and past wounds as by conscious choices. The world couldn't look away, drawn into a tale of love, betrayal, and fierce rivalry that went far beyond mere gossip. This was human drama, unfolding on the largest stage imaginable. The royal family, with its centuries-old traditions, strict expectations, and the watchful eyes of millions capturing every glance, every gesture. The tension between Diana and Camilla became legendary, not simply because it involved royalty, but because it was deeply raw, painfully emotional, and heartbreakingly real. Behind the sparkling crowns, lavish palaces, and polished appearances lived people with flaws, passions, and vulnerabilities. Their story reminds us that no matter how grand the setting, emotions, jealousy, and love remain as human and as intense as ever. So what do you think about why Camilla hated Diana? Was her hatred justified? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.